Welcome to a few moments together on the Parsha. This Shabbos, we have the privilege of reading Parshas Pinchas. The Parshas Pinchas has many different topics of discussion, but at the beginning of Perek Chaf Ches, it begins to talk about the karbanos, and of course, it begins with the daily karban. It's interesting, we say this particular paragraph every single morning in the karbanos, and of course, on Rosh Hachodesh, this particular section of Parshas Pinchas is read in the Torah on Rosh Hachodesh, which in Yetz Hashem we will have an opportunity to celebrate next week. The Parsha that talks about the karbanos and begins the discussion of the karbanos talks about the daily karban. And the pasuk says, Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Tzav es b'nei Yisrael v'amata aleim, command the Jewish people and say to them, as karbani lachmil ishai, that my daily bread karban, reach nicholchi, which is my special smelling, beautiful reach nichoach, meaning acceptable offering, Tishmeru, you should guard, lahakriv li b'moado, you should guard to bring it in its proper time. What is that? V'amarto lehem, you should say to them, Zeh ha'isher shetakrivu la Hashem. This is the fire offering that you should bring to Hashem. Kvasim b'nei shana. Kvasim means lambs, not one, but two. Kvasim b'nei shana, timimim, complete. They should be complete without blemish. Shnayim layom, two each day, ola tamid, on a continual upgoing offering each and every day. Esakeves echad ta'aseh v'aboker, the first lamb you should do in the morning, the esakeves hasheni, and the second lamb, ta'aseh bein ha'arbayim, you should do in the evening. So there's one lamb, the daily karban, brought in the morning, and one in the evening. What happens? The Gemara in Menachem discusses, what happens if you neglected to bring the morning karban? Can you then bring the evening karban? You're supposed to bring the first karban in the morning, and the second lamb you're supposed to do between the evenings. Does this mean that if you neglected to bring the first one, you've voided the opportunity to do the mitzvah of bringing the two karbanos, and you therefore cannot bring the second one? Or is it possible that you'd be able to bring the second one even if you neglected to bring the first one? Now, why ask such a question? And let me explain. There is a discussion in the Gemara in Menachem, beginning on Daf Mem Tes in the Mishnah and ending on Daf Nun Amud Aleph in the Gemara, in which the Gemara asked this question. Does it mean when it says that one should be brought in the morning and the second in the evening, that if you neglected to bring the first, you can't bring the second, or can you bring the second? Now, this has application to all of our lives. We all try to be as good and as righteous as possible. The Jewish people always try to do things in the right way. We want to do a complete mitzvah, not a part mitzvah. And when Hashem told us to make it our business to be there in the morning and to be there in the afternoon, we have a concept that goes with that, and that is we daven Shachris in the morning, we daven Mincha in the afternoon, we daven Ma'ariv in the evening. Let's say a person neglected to daven the morning minyan for one reason or another. Of course, if it was an accident, so there's very little argument about it. But what if, God forbid, a person actually neglected to do part of the mitzvah? Can the person then make up the rest of the mitzvah, even if they neglected to do part of it? And this affects each and every one of us on a constant basis. Are we perfect? Of course not. We're not. So sometimes we have the feeling that if we don't do what's perfect in the morning, what's the point of continuing to go further and do in the evening? If we neglect one day's observance, if we're not so good on the second day of the month, should we therefore not be good on the third day? And if we're not so good at the beginning of the year, does it mean we can't get better at the end? It's always a question as to whether or not if we neglect something, should we neglect the second or should we strive to do better? And of course, Klal Yisrael has the concept that if we want to be good, and if we fail in a little bit of something, if we fail to give tzedakah a little bit at the first time, should we forget to give the second time, or should we try to do the best we can to overcome it? And this question is a question that is dealing in this particular parsha, on this particular concept, and in this Gemara, and you look it up in the Gemara of Menachem on Daf Memtes and Daf Nun, and I want to read with you the halacha as is quoted by the Rambam. If you will look, please, in Hilchos Timidim Umusafim, at the end of Perek Aleph, in halacha Yud Beis, and this is based on the Gemara that we just quoted, and I'm going to read it to you from the Rambam. And it's interesting to hear what he has to say, because this is the halacha. Says the Rambam, Ta'u, if they made a mistake, O shogagu, or they were in some way by accident not fulfilling the mitzvah, afilu hezidu, even if they on purpose, v'lo hikrivu tamid shel shachar, and they did not bring the morning daily korban, yachrivu tamid shel bein arbayim, they should bring the afternoon korban. And when it says es hakeves hasheni ta'aseh bein ha'arbayim, it means even if they neglected to bring the korban tamid shel shachar. And if you'll have a chance to go further in the Rambam, you'll see how he makes a distinction between whether or not the Mizbeach had already been consecrated. Because the original consecration, the best time to get yourself started is the morning. We are awake and alive and full of life in the morning. And we should not think that because we're a little bit later in the day, and perhaps we weren't as good as we should have been through our lives or during part of the day, we should give up and say, I can't get better. Don't fall into that trap. Es hakeves echad ta'aseh v'boker, ve'es hakeves hasheni ta'aseh bein ha'arbayim, as the Rambam says, afilu hezidu, even if on purpose, v'lo hikrivu tamid shel shachar, and they didn't do it when it was morning, yakrivu tamid shel bein ha'arbayim, even if when we're younger, we weren't that sharp. Even if when we were younger, we weren't that good. Even if we made mistakes at some point in our lives, don't despair and don't give up. Yakrivu bein ha'arbayim, even when it comes to evening and it's a little late in life, never give up. Klal Yisrael has a halacha that we can fulfill the daily korban, our responsibility, under almost any and all circumstances, even if we were somewhat neglectful at some point. And when it comes to Rosh Chodesh Av and the 9 days in which we know that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of man's inhumanity to man, bein Adam lachaveiro, even if we weren't perfect at the beginning, but we can make it better, because even if you didn't bring in the morning, it is possible to bring it in the evening. Powerful, powerful words of the Pasuk and the Gemara and the Halacha, that a Jew doesn't give up, and we don't fall into the miserable trap of saying, I can't get better, because we see that it's possible under any and all circumstances. Even if we weren't good in the morning, we can become good in the evening. Is it better to be good in the morning? Of course. It's always better to start off fresh when we're young. It's always better to start the day with the right foot. But we still do not despair. If we didn't, do not despair. We can pick ourselves up and go further and fulfill the Pasuk, the Gemara, the Halacha of getting better and bringing about a great gift for Klal Yisrael, even if we didn't start out doing that way. What a powerful, powerful idea brought to us by the simple reading of the Psukim, the Gemara, and the Halacha, and applying it to our lives. We can still make the world a better place. Our own world, our personal world, our family world, our community world, Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, the future of the world is in our hands. Even if it wasn't perfect before, we can get better now. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I want to wish everyone Shabbat Shalom, U'Mevorchim, and Yetz Hashem, a Hachodesh Tov, when it comes to the Yom Tov of Menachem, of bringing a consolation in the month of Av, that the Jewish people will see a bright future. Even if we didn't do it perfectly till now, we don't despair. We bring the afternoon korban, and we hope that it brings us korov, closer to Hashem. Shabbat Shalom U'Mevorach, Chodesh Tov, and we should see that the 9 days of now trouble and despair a little bit will be changed. Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, because Hashivenu Hashem Elecha, Hashem, we will return to you. Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, renew our days as of old. Shabbat Shalom U'Mevorach.